Hello and welcome to Vibration Energy News. This is Cody here. He's just coming to give us a bit of a hand on the vibration news at the moment. Last week we talked about sort of calmness that was supposed to be happening in the vibration. Didn't quite happen like that, did it really? But we'll go into that and we'll look at the reasons in that later on. We did also talk about the possible hurricane happening in the Atlantic from Africa, and we'll get you updates on that. But before we go any further, isn't that right, Cody? Before we go any further, let's head down to the sun. So the vibrations of the sun have been pretty steady this week, although very stormy, as we can see here. The corona hole that was facing at the end of last week gradually drifting out as the sun turns round, and only to be confronted by another coronal hole, much larger, much deeper than the previous one, and we'll have a look at how that affects the earthquakes across the earth. But what this is in the way of corona holes is a releasing energy, and this is what we've been having over the last week. A lot of releasing of vibrations through the world, through people, and through the universal system. We did have a very calm part at the beginning of the week. As you can see, there's a lot of green in the beginning part. And then we had a solar storm at the weekend just gone, which happened on the Saturday and Sunday. Just to keep you up to date with the chakras, have a good eye over this. You can stop the video and investigate this a little bit further, but you might want to need this when we go into the earthquakes. Before we go into the chakras, let's just have a look at the vibration oscillating situation between the earthquakes as they go from the north to the south, back to the equator, and then eventually settling back down in the south. Now, the earthquakes that we're hitting across this globe at the moment, we were mainly getting a lot of plexus solis and root chakras, with some up in the crown chakra. But the interesting one that just went through there was the one up by the heart chakra, up by the UK, and we'll be going through that in a moment. But earthquakes, these are the ones that are coming from the coronal hole, and they built up during the week. By the end of the weekend, we had a lot of 6-pointers going on all over the place. So let's just go back to that one particular day, the Tuesday, when the heart chakra got rung a little bit by the UK. And this was just after this speech by Greta Thunberg, and a lot of action that was going on throughout the world, which was releasing a lot of passionate energy. And this was not only in the Greta Thunberg speech, well, after the Greta Thunberg speech, this is the Tuesday, but also in the UK courts, how the Parliament was taken to task, basically, by the higher courts, but also by the impeachment of Donald Trump in America. And we can see this. There was a crown chakra going on, there was the heart chakra going on, and also the plexus solis. So this was really powerful, passionate vibrations that was coming through the Earth system, through the universal system. So that was last week. Let's just have a quick look at what's coming up next week. There's the sun showing few coronal holes and possible few sunspots, so keep an eye on that as it comes through the system. Back to that wind map that we showed you last week, and this is the South Pole. Last week we can see the triangular formation of the South Pole, and I explained that last week about the Earth's vibrations and how it pulls this polar vortex into certain positions. And this has changed this week, so now we've got onto a situation which looks almost like square-like, almost like an eye, really. But don't forget, this is the southern polar vortex. The northern polar vortex has still not got its act together, and it's very slow in getting its act together this year. So the transition between summer and autumn may not actually happen. We might just end up just going straight into winter. Last week we talked about that dust storm that was going coming off of the Sahara Desert in North Africa, and this is a closer look. This is a particle map, and we can see these particles being driven into the centre of the Atlantic, and it's gradually accumulating, and as it does, it's iron charged, Therefore, the magnetic fields of the Earth are really going to start playing on it. And we can see this eye forming on it here. If we transfer into the wind map, this is the hurricane that is forming at this present second in the Atlantic. Now, it's pretty stationary at the moment, but if we look at the vortexes around it and the weather patterns around it, it's going to be dragged back up into mainland Europe, which normally it should be heading across to America. But this is all got to do with the Earth's vibration that's happening at the moment. The vortexes across the Earth are actually breaking down. Here we have the vortex around the Caribbean, which is the Bermuda Triangle, and the one that's over Africa. And these ones were usually turned on in certain sense in order to bring those hurricanes across. But this has not been happening. And this is the change that is going on in the Earth. Everything seems to be upside down. Is this a polar shift? We think so. So we were bang on about that hurricane then, and that shows the vibrations that's happening in the Earth. There's a wind of change going on, but it's a long change. It's not one that happens today or yesterday or even this month, but it's all part and parcel of this continual evolving state that we are in, and we've been in for some time now, since probably around about the last 7 or 8 years, when they've started changes in the sun. I noticed it in 2009, 2010, in one of the equinox and vibrations that were coming through the ley lines. There was a definite change going on. And we can see that in the weather patterns, where autumns and springs seem to be very small, and summers and winters seem to be getting longer. So, what's happening in the vibration for us? Well, it is an expressive time. As we were talking earlier on about the coronal holes, there is expression coming out. There is release energy that is happening. And this is happening all around us. So you may experience yourself releasing this energy, releasing eternal truths within yourself that you kind of say one day to a friend, you kind of think, wow, that was really profound, or sort of, yeah, I was right on the money there. And it's things that are coming from deep within, from our past, and from during our lives. So it's a real clearing energy at the moment, and this is what's going on. And what this clearing energy is doing is making the solutions for the future. So this week and for the next 2 weeks, I would have thought vibrations will allow solutions to come through. So this is not just on a personal level, this is also on an international level, this is on a global scale. So we are start moving towards the solutions to the problems that have been facing us for a very long time, but haven't been paying attention to it. The changing vibration of the Earth, as I said earlier on, with the magnetic pole shift, which is starting to go on at this moment and can last from anything from 50 years to 2,000, maybe even 12,000 years. So it's difficult to actually say when it starts and when it stops, but it's definitely happening. But then we can see this in everybody. We can see this in ourselves. There is our ideas have been turned on its head. We don't look at the world in the same way as which we did 2 to 3 years ago. Everything, the way males and females interact, there's a complete change in attitude. Everything is being turned on its head. So maybe it's a time also as well for ourselves personally to change our old belief systems, to change the way we confronted the world, to actually turn them on its head. I think this could possibly be a very good window of opportunity. And this window of opportunity lasts for a very long time. As I said earlier on about the inversion of the poles, it's going to take time to come through. And there is not one person who has the solution. We all have the solution. We are all part of the solution. And being part of the solution should invigorate you, should make you feel very powerful. So this is what we need to do starting from this week, is starting to get involved on a personal level on the vibrations are the solutions that are within yourself and within the world around you. It's taking what we see and what we feel around us, not only in the human vibration, but also in the nature vibration, and turning it into a solution for a possible brighter future. So don't just step back and relax, although the energy vibrations are starting to reduce at this present time, certainly in the northern hemisphere, but certainly when we take that step back, try and look clearly around us and clearly at the vibrations of the nature and of the human vibrations, so we can actually step forward and actually be part of the solution. Make that a personal goal within yourself. Be clear with yourself so you can understand that it is okay for you to turn around and say no to people. It's okay for you to turn around and say yes to people, but knowing at the right moment to do that and say that, that is when you connect with the vibration. That's when you feel it inside you. And that's when we can take this all forward and make the solutions that are here around us and inside us. So, keep an eye on that hurricane. It's going to produce a lot of nasty weather for the northern part of Europe, but I think it's necessary to invigorate and kickstart that North Polar vortex. So it should help to calm things down for this winter. Although I would say, looking at the vibrations, we're going to have a very cold winter in the northern hemisphere. We'll wait and see what happens there. But don't forget, it's life. Life should be fun. It should be exciting. You should be involved in these solutions. You're going to love it, man. Enjoy yourself. Don't forget, it should be fun. Take care.